the bank.
Hey Brett, how's it going this week?
Good, Ange. How are you?
Good. So that means it's another episode of Money in the Bank, the podcast where we talk about all things related to personal finance and more. So there's no trivia question this week.
I win. All right. 2019, here I come.
We messed up.
Oh, yeah?
So actually, and I actually want to say thank you to our listeners because we've gotten several corrections coming in. And we're only human, so we make mistakes and we don't say things that are completely correct, right? So 3 corrections, like I said. The first one is when we were talking about IRAs, we said that they were tax-free. Can you catch the error there? I lied. It is a trivia question.
Oh, good. Thanks. Now we have 3 trivia questions. It's not tax-free, right? Nothing's like tax-free. On the traditional IRA, you pay taxes when you pull the money out. And on a Roth IRA, you pay the taxes when the money goes in.
Exactly. So we should have said tax-deferred instead of tax-free.
Yep.
So on a Roth, it's not tax-deferred because you pay the taxes up front, and then it's tax-free growth in the future. But then on a traditional, it's tax-deferred because you pay the taxes later. The second one was when we were talking about limits for 401ks and IRAs. We mentioned them as being $18,000 for 401ks and $5,500 for IRAs. And of course, that's for 2018 numbers, so it's a little bit confusing. $19,000 for 401ks for 2019. But the issue there was we didn't specify if you're a married couple what that is, and really it doubles because those are individual contributions amount. So if you're an individual, that's kind of the amount that you can contribute. But if you're a married couple, you can both contribute that much. So it would really be like $38,000 in 2019 for 401ks and $11,000 for IRA.
It's still everybody gets their own, right? It's just if you're married, then
Correct.
you could just multiply that by 2, right? It's just, it's not there's no synergy there, right?
Yep.
You're not getting more because you're married. You just put 2 people's money together, and there you go.
Exactly. Yeah. But just wanted to clear up any confusion. So if, a married couple is planning their finances and they were like, oh, Angie said I can only do, $5,500 for an IRA for both me and my wife, that's incorrect. You can actually do $5,500 for both you and your wife. So that would be $11,000.
Cool.
And the third one is probably kind of the most confusing, but it involves student loan interest and how that comes into play with your taxes. So we incorrectly spoke and say that you have $2,000 of student loan interest that you paid in 2018, and the standard deduction for a single person is going to be $12,000. We said that since $2,000 is less than $12,000, you should just take the standard deduction and not worry about your student loan interest. But in actuality, the student loan interest can be deducted before the standard deduction, so you can deduct $14,000 instead of $12,000.
Right, so it's basically additional, right?
Correct,
Right?
yeah.
So it's just standard deduction, and I get to count my student loan stuff no matter what, right?
Yes, because you make the adjustment on the front end to your gross income.
Okay. Is that true of a mortgage as well, or is that special to student loan? And
I don't want to misspeak again.
I'm getting you into trouble. All right, perfect.
I believe it is specific to student loan interest, but I would encourage everybody to look at the forms themselves or follow, like if you use TurboTax or H&R Block, this is all built into their software, which we talked about pretty extensively on our last podcast about it. And if you if you go to the form on the website, it'll lay that out pretty clearly for you. And the reason I'm cautious and I don't want to misspeak is I know property taxes have changed in the last, decade, how those are handled. So the tax law can change from year to year. So it's actually really good to just kind of download those forms and walk through it, or use TurboTax. They always update for the latest rules and everything.
Cool. Okay.
Or of course, if you go to your local CPA, they are trained for this and they know a lot more than I do. So, all right. So sorry again about those corrections, but we all make mistakes. So at least we're setting the record straight, right?
Perfect.
All right. So are you ready to jump into this week's episode?
All right. As long as there's no more trivia.
Hopefully not. So our last episode was 10 ways to save money. And I started thinking about it and I was like, we left off this, we left off that. And that episode was already like 40 minutes long, which was kind of like long for us.
I like to drag those out, right?
Yeah. Well, we love talking about saving money so much that I figured let's just do 10 more ways to save money.
Okay. So we're cranking it to 20. All right.
Yeah, cranking it to 20. So by the end of this 2-parter that we determined it would be, y'all are just going to be saving money till you're blue in the face. So
Right.
that's great. Okay, the first one, this is actually a personal experience that I had recently. I needed a prescription for something. And I was like, well, where should, we just moved to a new city. And the doctor's office I was at was like, well, where do you want your prescription sent? And I was like, I don't know. Like, where should I go? And I was like, so I didn't know. So they just wrote me a prescription that I could take and drop off at any pharmacy, right? Because usually they'll send it in for you. So I got home and I was like Googling pharmacies near me. And I was like, there's a ton. Like, how do I even pick? And so then I just Googled like the specific prescription I needed. And
like the particular medicine that they were prescribing. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. I Googled the medicine and I was like pharmacies near me or whatever. And Google popped up with this like grid and it was like at Publix, it's this price. At Walmart, it's this price. At CVS, it's that price. And it was wildly different. Like at one of them, it was like $26 and at another one, it was like $50.
Oh,
right.
Wow. Okay.
And like they're all literally within like 2 miles of where I live. So it's not like it mattered which one I went to. And then furthermore, from that website, it was like, oh, and do you want to go to like goodrx.com is what it was called, which sounds like a scam website, but it was actually legit. I didn't get a virus. And on there, I could actually print off a prescription card. And with that, it literally took the price. So I ended up going to the Publix across the street and it took the price from like $40 to $17.
Oh, wow.
And so then I checked
free coupon, right?
Free
like
coupon.
You just click it and download
I just had to
it.
click it and download it and then give it to the pharmacy
And then
when
it
I
gave
went
you that
there.
virus.
Yeah, and then get that virus on my computer, no big deal. But the cool thing was when I got the card, it re-showed like with the discount at the pharmacy, this is the new price. Because like originally it was like way cheaper for me to go to like Walmart, let's say. But then with the coupon, like the Publix pharmacy had the best price with this coupon, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it saved me, between the two prescriptions I needed, it saved me $85, which is significant. So I played around with some other common, prescriptions or drugs that I know of off the top of my head. And I was finding consistently like prices going from like $100 to $25. Like it was not uncommon for that to happen. So 100%, like you should, if you are getting prescriptions, you should 1, shop around, and 2, see if there's a card that would work for you.
Right. Do not default your prescriptions to your favorite pharmacy for the sake of it, right? That's not helping you in any way.
Right.
So just like with everything, shop around a little bit.
And another thing you can do, and I know it was super common when we lived in Michigan that I heard people talking about it, is actually ordering their prescriptions from Canada because they were so much cheaper even though they were being shipped here. So if you like Google this, you can find all sorts of crazy, ways to save money. But if nothing else, like I literally just downloaded a card, printed it off, gave it to the pharmacist, and I walked out of there saving $85. So that was pretty sweet. All right, moving on to number 2. So we talked about groceries on the last one, and we were like, yeah, go to farmers markets and all this stuff. We didn't talk about our favorite way to save money, buy in bulk.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, we're huge fans of that.
Yeah. We buy nuts in bulk. We buy seeds in bulk, like beans and like pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds and peanuts and like all kinds of like
oats.
things that stay good and have long shelf lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll buy like almost 50 pounds at a time with some of those things, not all of those things.
Yeah.
The things we
rice.
go through a lot. Yeah, rice is another thing to buy in bulk.
We've saved, and we bought a whole pig, which we've talked about before, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even down to like toilet paper and paper towel, like I know when you're standing in the store, it's like, oh, I can just get a 4-pack of toilet paper and it's only this much. But if you buy that like 72 pack from Sam's Club, it literally lasts you forever. And the per roll price is so much cheaper.
Right. And we're not saying like get a Sam's Club membership or a Costco membership and like that's going to just like automatically check this box for you of like bulk buying saves you money. The majority of things that we buy in bulk don't come from those stores. Only like utility goods, like things that you would stuff into like your pantry or paper towel or bathroom closet is what we buy. So toilet paper, paper towels, paper plates a lot of the time, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's really anything that's like food good related. Usually Costco doesn't have the best price in some of those categories.
Right. And the secondary thing I want to say there about a Costco or Sam's Club membership is you can actually share them. Like most of the accounts when you get them, you can set up 2 people on them. So you can, get in on it with your parents or siblings or friends and kind of each get a membership for half price, which then it makes it a lot more economical. Because even for us, like just buying paper towel and toilet paper, it wouldn't justify the cost of an annual membership if we weren't sharing it and splitting the cost, which is like a very viable, easy thing to do because you don't need like 2 people in your family to have the card. One of you is probably perfectly acceptable. So, all right, number 3, DIY stuff. Now this can be as far as like doing your own stuff around the house. Like we've installed a kitchen sink or a kitchen faucet before, but it can also apply to like things that you might want to buy or like things that you're like, oh, that's a good idea. So one example that I had recently is we were at the farmer's market and they had all of these dips set out. And the dips were expensive and it was like, buy this spice mix basically and then dump in like sour cream, right? Well, you could just make your own spice mix.
Right. You probably already have all of those spices in your cabinet anyway. Like it was like garlic and herb. And I was like, okay, that's like garlic and like parsley and like thyme. Right. Or oregano.
Yeah. And then at the same stand, they had these like dip cooler holders. And it was literally like a plastic container in another plastic container, like a larger one, so you could put ice in the first one and then put the smaller one on top. And I was like, I could just do that with 2 bowls.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes when you see stuff like that, you're like, oh, that's such a good idea. But like, take a step back and be like, can I already solve this problem with tools I have in my own space?
Right. Things may appear convenient on the surface, but right, where do you put that in your kitchen, right? That's another thing. And then you're not going to use it that often, so eventually you're going to be like, oh, here's this thing that I got that was a good idea, but, I've only used it once in 5 years that I've had it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so number 4, we've touched on this a little bit before, but travel hacking is a super viable way to get places, right? Like you can open a credit card and get enough points to pay for your next, airfare. So that can be a viable option for people. Or just in general, when you're traveling, don't just like go to a travel agent and be like, book me a trip to Disney. Like, look at it yourself and be like, is there somewhere I can stay that might not be like on property but close to Disney and is like half the price? And do I really want to go to Disney 7 out of 7 days, or do I want to go there like 3 out of 7 days and do other stuff those 4 days, like mini golf or something, right? And we've kind of traveled around the world even, and so like it can be kind of hard to be like, well, where should I stay? But when you start like Googling hotels, you can quickly see like, oh, this is where hotels are concentrated, and this is a cool area. But I know when we went to Berlin, we saved a lot of money by being in a slightly different part of town that was in a different neighborhood than where, a lot of the touristy stuff was, like Checkpoint Charlie. But we actually saved a ton of money, and we were in a cool neighborhood with really good restaurants. So that was like a 10 out of 10 decision.
And maybe we got lucky there, maybe we didn't. Angela just consistently gets lucky 100% of the time that she picks these places out, so I'm starting to not think it's that much based on luck. So, but all that information is there. It's available if you pull up like Google Maps and just like find, here are the points of interest, right? They like highlight all of that stuff.
Right.
And like, here's like the concentration of like hotel areas. Well, that's probably where most of the tourists stay. So then you want to stay like a couple blocks off from there, right?
Right.
And then so then you're not like in the mix of it, like where everybody's busy or all like the panhandlers are like marketing to, or like the people are trying to sell crap at, but you're like off and you can go kind of wherever you want to. And then you're halfway in between like the stuff that you want to go see, that's the popular stuff that you're there for, and like the local stuff that's really cool that people like enjoy on a daily basis, right?
Right. And I feel like the other thing there is like with Google reviews, you can easily be like, oh, this place is like down a dark alleyway and is super dangerous and I don't want to stay there. Or like, hey, look, this has like 100% good reviews and everyone said it and it was a great location with a lot of cool stuff going on, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing that we usually do when we travel abroad or travel anywhere is find a hotel that like helps us with transportation to or from the airport if they don't have good public transportation. So usually that's just like US based trips because everywhere in Europe is great. And then we also try to find hotels that include breakfast. I know the place that we stayed in Paris, like they made us delicious breakfast every morning and it was like included in our hotel rate.
Yeah, most of the places we stay, not in the United States have fantastic breakfasts. Like, here, when we travel inside the U.S., like I want to go out somewhere and like experience a different thing.
Because you don't want Frosted Flakes and like build your own waffle.
Like stale bananas that have been on the counter at any of these like breakfast, continental breakfasts, right? They're all like the lowest grade possible food that's been sitting around for a week, and it's the cheapest excuse to just like check the box at the hotel that says like we serve breakfast, right? Just so we can take another like $15 out of for this day. But anywhere in Europe that we stayed, either it was like a bed and breakfast type deal, and it was like connected or affiliated with somebody that owned the B&B, also owned a restaurant, and we'd like go there and like they made us food. Or the place in the hotel was like this small little thing, a small little place, or even some of the bigger places make like curated breakfasts with like salmon and like, breads and cheeses and different kinds of like good meats and stuff that they put out, and lots of fruit, and it's like this like really, really good breakfast. But and that's something that we would get even if we went out to eat anyway there in those areas.
Right. And like they usually always have a cappuccino maker.
Yeah.
So then I'm happy because I get my cappuccino included. And then we like eat enough that usually like we can get by with like eating a big breakfast and then eating like a, early dinner and we're good. So that's kind of like a bang, I guess, money saver. And then the other big thing is like, even traveling in the U.S., last year we went to New Orleans, and we made a point to not rent a car when we went there because we were like, well, do we really need one? Can we get around other ways? And like, we ended up doing a tour bus that drove us around to a couple areas we wanted to go to, or we took the local public transportation, or we walked, and like, we got away for much, much cheaper than having to like rent a car and pay for parking and pay for gas and all that stuff that goes into that.
Right, because unless you get like a really savvy deal on renting a car, and you're gone and you're there for like a week or something, right? I mean, that can get really expensive.
Yeah, and if your auto insurance does not cover car rental, which not everybody's does, then you have to rent like their insurance, which is
should.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to, but you really should. And then you're like, that just adds like, all of a sudden you're at the register and it's like you thought you got a good deal, and then they just like add $100 to your bill.
Yeah, you thought it was like $15 a day, now it's like $75 a day. Right?
Yeah. So, and then on that note, point number 5 that Brett has experienced recently is so he travels a lot for work, and for a whole week, even though he has to Uber every single day, twice a day, he finds it cheaper to Uber versus renting a car.
Right. And I mean, it depends on the situation, your distance, and your area. But like I've found, for me, it's like $10 cheaper to Uber back and forth to the airport and back and forth from my project site to my hotel every day. And it comes out to be, like twice in 2 weeks in a row now. It's been like $10 cheaper than what my rental car rates were.
Yeah. And
that was with Hertz, which is more expensive than the other ones. But that's the preferred vendor for my company. So we get like a big deal discount anyway. So,
yeah. So, yeah, we mentioned last time to like drive less. But yeah, so even when you go on vacation, like if you're flying somewhere, crunch the numbers, see like, well, I know I'm going to have to like Uber here, here, and here. But is there stuff that's within walking distance to your hotel? Or is there public transportation that can take you where you need to go? Or if you're going between cities, like, are you going to fly between cities, drive between them, take a train or bus, right? Because we've literally done all of those options before. And, I think a lot of times people think, well, I'll just drive. It's like cheaper and easier and more convenient. But you will quickly find out that is like not always true. And if you like really crunch the numbers, driving does not win out handedly a lot of the time.
Right. I mean, it gives you more flexibility from going place to place. And a lot of times people walk away and say like, I feel like I got a great deal. But then you really didn't, right? You really ended up paying 3 times more than you would have if you, ended up taking like the shuttle or the bus. Or sometimes there were free options and you didn't even look it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the train. And, like that is my favorite way to travel. I've said it before, but we've gone to Europe twice. And like every time we take a train anywhere, we're like, this is the most relaxing, stress-free way to travel. And like if you can get on an overnight train, it's like you don't have to pay for a hotel that night and you're getting to your next location. So it's a win-win.
Right.
And it's like, it's the best. I don't know. If you never traveled by train, do it. It's my favorite for sure. All right, number 6, buy secondhand. So we touched on this in episodes in the past, but if you're looking to buy something new, and we really noticed this with kitchen appliances, like if you're going to buy a new blender or a new juicer or a new coffee pot, you can probably jump on Craigslist and find the exact one that you want to buy that somebody bought and then decided, oh, hey, I'm never using this, and they just want to offload it.
Right. Kitchen appliances are the number one thing to get people for the holidays, and they're the number one thing that go unused for the holidays, even though they're usually the most appreciated too. Like, oh, this thing's really cool. I'm really glad I have this. And then they use it like 5 times, and they're like, oh, this takes up too much space. Right? Because all kitchen appliances take up a lot of space, and people just don't have a lot of room, and they need to eventually get rid of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
and
basically brand new, you can get all away with this stuff for like a quarter of the price.
I feel like another thing is TVs. Like, everyone keeps buying bigger and bigger TVs, and then they have their old TVs that are still, like, flat screen and nice, and there's nothing wrong with them. And they're just like, what do I do with this? And, like, you can't even give them away sometimes.
I know. We had a tough time, like, giving away, like, a 30-inch, like, flat screen TV.
We had a tough time giving away a 45-inch flat screen TV.
Yeah, if it's, like, not 60, 70 inches, and, like, forget it.
Yeah. So TVs are good to buy secondhand, and furniture. Like, I've heard so many secondhand stores saying that, like, they can't even take furniture anymore because they're, like, full to capacity. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you need a dresser or nightstands or tables, like, those are things that you can easily go and get secondhand. And, you know, we actually did that in college. We pulled our dining room table out of the dumpster, and it came with these chairs. But then my roommate just made new cushions for the chairs and, like, refinished them a little bit, and it looked great. So you can definitely, like, you know, polish stuff up again and make it your own. So that's a good way to do it. Number 7, kind of on a similar token, if there's something that you really do want, look to see if there's an off-brand version. So my example here is that Yeti brand has been, like, super popular because they make those tumblers that, like, nothing melts, right? Mm-hmm. But they're like $30 per tumbler. Or more. And there's a off-brand that you can buy, and it's like, well, several actually. Like, I've seen a lot of them. I've even seen them at the farmer's market now. And, like, they're literally the same exact thing. Like, they're the same cup, and they're a third of the price.
Right. It comes from the same warehouse in China or whatever, right?
Right.
Like, it's an identical product.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have the Yeti, like, logo on it.
Right. And I feel like that's, like, very true of a lot of things. Like, purses, clothes, tumblers, you know, cups, all that stuff. Like, you don't have to get a certain brand. So, like, just shop around. See if you can get the same product for a cheaper price.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not the same product. Sometimes it's a knockoff, right? We're not talking about knockoffs.
Correct. Because, well, we can just jump into number 8.
Sure.
Which is buy it for life mentality. So you pay more for something that will last longer.
Right. So that's more of our mantra of buy the right thing, right?
Right.
And so the right thing may not be the cheapest thing, may not be the most expensive thing, but it fits the need for you for as long as you need to have it.
Right.
And most things you want to have for a longer duration adds more value to you.
Yeah.
Right?
So my example here is actually suitcases. I feel like that is where it is totally worth bringing a little bit more money to the table to buy a little bit nicer suitcase versus, like, buying a cheap suitcase. And my reason for this is I remember the first time I bought a suitcase, I bought a $50 suitcase, and I thought that was a lot of, like, it was this big pink suitcase when I was in, like, 7th grade, and I was really excited about it because I, like, saved my money to get this pink suitcase I wanted. And, like, as a 7th grader, $50 is a ton of money. And even to this day, I don't spend $50 on just anything. The first time I used that suitcase, because it was such a cheap fabric, it just ripped, like, right down the back. Things spilled out of it. Delta was like, there's nothing we can do. Actually, I don't know if it was Delta, whatever airline I was flying. And it was, like, so sad for me, right? And so then for Christmas that year, my dad got me this, like, big pink Samsonite suitcase. And, like, Samsonite is a very expensive suitcase brand. I haven't even looked into current prices because I got that suitcase, 15 years ago at this point, and it's still kicking. Brett hates it, but it's like, there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like, that thing has survived everything.
It is a tank. Yeah. I mean, it's got a bunch of marks on it, which could be cleaned up, but, like, TSA has thrown it around. You can see, like, where they've, like, really abused the heck out of it, but it is solid. So none of the wheels have broken off. I mean, those are still in great condition. Everything rolls. But it's the only reason I don't like it is because it's like obnoxiously large. Like Angela could physically fit her whole body inside of it.
It is a huge suitcase, but like, yeah, for having a suitcase that long, like nothing has ripped, torn, the wheels still work perfectly. It's like day one, the handle's still great. So like, I feel like that's an example where like I remember my grandparents literally had the same suitcases like their entire life, right? So putting a little bit more money into something like that, especially when you're a big traveler, like when we started going to Europe, we actually bought these, backpacks that we went over there with, and we've used those for years now for all sorts of trips, and those things are super durable versus just like, any old backpack that probably would have ripped by now.
Yeah. But if you're going to put the money behind it, right, it's still make sure you buy the right thing for the situation that you're going to be in.
Right.
If you're going to be traveling to Europe, you don't want the biggest suitcase on the market. You don't want to buy the best giant suitcase on the market because then you got to haul that thing around, right? So you want to make sure that you're looking up different reviews of people that have traveled in the situations that you're going to be traveling in. And so, right, for us, that was more of a backpack style.
Right.
So we ended up getting the best backpack style backpack that was made at the time.
And now we take those everywhere.
Right, and yeah.
And I never use my big pink suitcase, so I understand. Okay, so number 9, take care of your stuff. So whether you buy the cheapest thing or the most expensive thing, take care of it. So don't just and I think the biggest thing here is clothing items. So follow the care instructions. Don't accidentally toss everything into hot water with a red sweatshirt and then everything you pull out has shrunk and turned red. Right?
Oh yeah, how many sweaters have I had that just turned into they could fit Smurfs? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've ruined a couple pieces of clothing by not following the instructions, but yeah, I just throw everything in the laundry and turn it on normal or whatever setting is default, and then hope it all turns out right.
Yeah, I feel like if you wash stuff on cold though and you don't use a dryer, you really can't go too far wrong. That's just what I've done my whole life. I put everything in together, but I'm I'll just put it on cold and I'll hang everything up to dry. And then I have clothes that I've had since middle school that there's nothing wrong with them, so I don't get rid of them.
Right. I mean, and you notice the difference. When you get a new sweatshirt or something like that, the material just feels nice and you're oh, this is definitely new. It's silkier. But after you have worn that sweatshirt or washed it for a couple months, it becomes very knotty, I guess. Or the texture becomes a lot rougher than it used to be. Or it's all just full of micro snags kind of. That's an example of the deterioration of the clothes because they were just in the dryer too many times, right?
Right.
And so so your clothes just end up staying a little bit nicer longer. They don't get stretched out. They don't, right? They just kind of hold together a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I'm super guilty of making my clothes look like crap.
But then you keep wearing them forever.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I keep wearing them forever. I just look stupid. So if I would have washed them, if I would have taken an extra 10 minutes to figure out how to wash it correctly in the first place, instead of dumping it all in the washing machine, they'd still look brand new today, right?
Yeah, and I feel another big thing here. So we talked about clothes, is vehicles, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or whatever they say. If you take your car in for regular oil changes and tire rotations, that, just taking care of a vehicle and maintaining it over time, you will avoid everything blowing up. And my example here is we actually knew somebody who literally never got an oil change for the entire time she owned her car. And so the car was only at 30,000 miles, but it never had an oil change. So everything just seized up. And I was actually driving it at the time and every single light turned on. So it's it lit up like a Christmas tree. Maybe it had more miles than that. I don't really remember. But
I think it made it all the way to it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 60,000 before the engine just completely seized up completely.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it even made it that far. Right? If that, what a crazy use case of what happens to a car if you've never done an oil change.
Right.
I'm sure somebody out there has tested that theory, but this was just somebody completely negligent.
Right. So just do the maintenance. And I'm not always great about it's because we use synthetic oil, so they say 5,000 miles. I'm not in there at 5,000 exactly. There's times that I'm oh, okay, we're at 5,500. I really need to get over there or whatever. Just do your best. But and then when, I think the big thing here is find a mechanic that you trust and not a place that just sells you a bunch of crap, right? Because I think that's a horror story. You go to like a Valvoline and you're like, I just want an oil change. And then they're like, oh, do you need your like fluids changed? And you're like, oh, maybe I do. And then they like rip you off and they just change your windshield wiper fluid and charged you $50.
Well, even
right?
that, I mean, I went to, let's say, a Valvoline oil type place before, and they charged me like 4 or 5 times what I would have paid going to any other place. Like that's another way to shop around at. Like,
right.
I was getting the same oil either way, right? Because Valvoline oil and Mobil oil or whatever the different varieties of oil are, scientifically proven that there's like basically absolutely no difference between those products. Right. Every test has always come back as like there's no significant difference between those, regardless of what additives they put in the oil. And so, whatever, right? Go with the one that's the cheapest at the time, and then great. But you need to go to somebody that is like flexible on what oil they use then, right?
Right.
Or buy your own oil and like take it to somebody that will like just do the oil change for you, like a mechanic.
Learn how to do your own oil changes because it's really easy.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Like we did our own oil changes before, and that turned out great. Like so, we bought the oil on super sale, and it was like a third of the price of what it normally is or something.
Right.
And the parts to be able to do it are like less than like $15 to get everything, and then you can do oil changes forever, right?
Yeah. But the other thing we did was we found a really reputable mechanic, and we would just take our car to him and be like, does anything need to be, maintained or swapped out? And like there were times that we took it to him and he was like, no, everything looks good. And then times that he was like, oh, the brake pads are really wearing down, like you should replace those. But because we like trusted him, we were like, yeah, if it needs to be done, we want to take care of it. But so it's a fine line. You got to like know where you're going, and that's again where like Google reviews is amazing because you can like,
or word of mouth in that case, right? Like you find somebody that like finds like a great guy and they give her a good referral. I mean, I went to that guy like 4 or 5 times, and 2 of those times he didn't even charge me for stuff that they actually did. They like repaired like a nail on my tire and like a slow leak in my tire like another time because something was like wearing incorrectly. So they fixed that problem and they fixed the leak, and like they're just like, see you later, right? They just sent me on my way. And I was like, what do you mean I don't need to pay you? I mean, just find like good quality people that are like trying to do it, right? They're not making a killing on that anyway. What were they going to make? Like $10 off of that anyway? But I keep coming back because it's such good service, right?
Right. So that's and you tell everyone to go there.
Yeah, that's the kind of people you want to find, and that's the kind of people you want to work with in every business model.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're on to our last one already, which is to kind of a complete 180, but to share subscription services. So if you have Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, you don't have to like have that to yourself. You can easily just pay for it with somebody else, share the access. I mean, with Netflix, usually you get, 1 device by default, but you can go up to like 2 devices or 4 devices. But even one, like, if you're sharing with one other person, how often are you guys going to be wanting to watch stuff at the same time?
Right. I mean, try it first, and if it doesn't work, I would be surprised, right?
Right.
Most people are like not doing things at the exact same time. They're like, unless you're watching it, unless both people are watching it every day, and that's all they do, right? And that's a good use case to expand the plan, right? And pay a little bit more for the larger plan where you can stream more devices at a time. Still not as expensive as buying 2 whole plans for 2 individuals.
Right.
And I know they say like, oh, we don't want you to share it. Like HBO is like, oh my gosh, we're going to crack down at some point on people sharing accounts. They're not doing that. They've still never done that. They're probably not going to do that. Like, how would they ever police that?
Right. Well, and I know with Prime, we started sharing accounts a couple of years ago, and we like still have our own accounts. Like I log in and it's like the same Amazon account I've always used, but I'm just on your plan. And the only difference is that because I'm not the primary holder, I can't watch like videos off of my accounts. So I have to like log into your account to watch the Amazon Prime videos, but I still get the free shipping and everything.
Right. So, I mean, use that account, dedicate what that account is to that thing. If you're going to share your password, make sure it's a password with somebody that you don't like epically trust, like literally a spouse. I wouldn't even share your password normally with your girlfriend. There's a lot of reasons to not do that. But right, just share a shared password, make it whatever. Who cares if like you guys break up and that account gets like compromised in some way? Because whatever, just trash it. And then go from there. But you should never pay for Amazon Prime in the same household because you can just share Amazon Prime with everybody in the household with all the different accounts. You just like associate them with the main account. And then, Netflix, definitely share with as many people as you can. All the Hulu, Crunchyroll, like whatever, right? Whatever you want. Amazon Video. If you wanted to download videos on your phone, you would just log into the app on your phone with the primary account, username and password, and whatever. Right?
Yep. So then the other thing I want to say there is if you're not sharing accounts, because I understand that, maybe you tried it and it didn't work for you, or, maybe you're like, well, I have 4 people in my household. I know we have some people that listen that have families, so it's, the 2 adults and 2 kids or 3 kids, whatever it may be. And like at that point, it's probably a lot harder to try to share with somebody, right? Because somebody is always watching something as it is. You can actually really easily put these accounts on pause. So like if you're like, yeah, me and the whole family we're going to go on a 2-week vacation, there's no reason to pay for those 2 weeks. So turn it off and turn it back on when you get home.
Right. Yeah, you can turn it on. Well, Netflix, I think, charges you for the month at a time.
Right.
But like your internet, right? Your internet provider. Definitely that stuff you can turn on and off at any time.
Yeah, and I think with Netflix, my bigger example is probably if you're paying for Netflix and Hulu at the same time, are you really using them both in the same month? Or could you turn on Netflix for, January, and then you turn on Hulu for February or whatever?
Right. And I know there's one of the guys I talked with at work one time, he's got a family with like 8 kids, and they pay like $400 a month for their entertainment bill, right? Basically for what they pay for all the streaming services. They have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and something else. They also download a whole bunch of movies off of Comcast like TV like clicking thing. Like you can just download like new releases right off of their internal service, part of the cable, and they have cable in like every room of the house, right? So that's a ton of media to consume, right? Can you trim that back a little bit? Like less TVs, or does the one kid like never watch the TV in his room and he's always watching Netflix? Or, right? Do you share those plans correctly? Do you only need to have Netflix 1 week or 1 month, and then Hulu another month, and then they share different shows and different services? Because I know the reason that we turned everything off for us was because there was basically too much good stuff to watch, and it doesn't matter. Like, we can't use as many services as are out there at the same time. It's impossible.
Right.
Like, I don't need to watch this specific show on Hulu because there's like 12 other shows that I definitely also want to watch on Netflix. So like whatever, right? Like, okay. And if everybody in your social circle is watching that one thing, then get somebody else's password and just watch that one show and like whatever, right? But right, so we turned off Netflix because we're like, okay, we could literally sit here all the time and just watch shows nonstop and never be able to catch up with all the good stuff that is out here.
And instead we want to, go outside or be productive or read more. And the other point I wanted to make about subscription services is, did you know that if you belong to your local library, there's a whole slew of subscription services you can actually look into for free?
Oh, yeah, I saw they sent us an email the other day that said, like, here's all the stuff that comes with your library card. And, like, half of them were, like, audiobooks and, like, video streaming services. And, like, here's all this stuff for free. Go check out, like, these new releases that come out on this, like, thing. And all these movies in the catalog that are available here. And you never see that because it's never advertised and pretty much not used by most people, because who have you talked to lately that, like, has used their library card, right?
So I'm part of a book club, and a lot of my friends are kind of nerdy. So most people I know, and I shouldn't say nerdy, but I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, so I think it's okay. But most of my friends use their library cards. In fact, I still Snapchat people, and I'm like, I'm reading this book. What are you reading? So I have my own. So I guess my social circle talks about books, which is really good for me because I don't consume a lot of TV shows. So whenever people are like, have you watched the latest episode of this? My answer is almost always no. And then I'm like, oh, great. I'm like that weird kid in the corner that just reads. But at least like I have my tribe of people who I can talk to about books. So it's okay. But yeah, no, I actually have pushed that message out to a lot of my friends who do use their library. And even people I knew who go to the library regularly to check out books did not know about these subscription services. And most libraries nationwide are partnered with these services. So and I don't necessarily want to get into names. I mean, I know probably one of the most common ones is Hoopla, and then I think there's like something Watch. But I know there's a ton nationwide. So if you go to your library's website, they'll actually probably have more information for you on which ones they partner with.
But yeah, either way, check it out. Like, go get a free library card, go get access to these free movies, and if, like, half the stuff that you're watching anyway is already on there. I mean, like, Game of Thrones isn't going to be there, and, like, you know, all the Marvel stuff.
And Orange is the New Black, right? Like, any
all the
Netflix
stuff
originals.
is not there.
But there might be, or maybe there's some, you know, good shows that you haven't even, like, heard of or thought about watching that are on there that are cataloged. So, you know, check it out and see. And we watch a lot of, like, movies or documentaries on it is what we've primarily used it for. So it's a good use for that. And, you know, I think the other big thing is there's so much on YouTube as well, which is a completely free well, it's not completely free now, right? There's like things that you have to pay for.
There is a premium service. The YouTube Red is what they considered their like premium paywall, where they were creating their own content and putting it behind it. As of I think early 2019. If not second quarter 2019, that will all be free. They're taking down that paywall completely.
Oh wow!
And so they're making it like it's just gonna be ad based content for everything that has been behind that YouTube Red paywall. All of that will come down, and you'll be able to watch it all for free at this point.
Sweet. All right. So yeah, tons of free ways to consume media. Try it out. See if you can cancel one subscription membership or share it with somebody, and see how that goes for you. Because at this point, we've literally cut everything except Prime, which we're cutting in a month, and then that's it, right?
Yeah, we started bleeding quite profusely with the monthly budget of like, here's all these different services that are now available and want you to pay like on reoccurring basis for all this stuff, right? This video as a service and package delivery as a service and all this junk, right? So that'll be the last piece to turn off, and then we'll go back to how things were like 5 years ago when we didn't have all these monthly fees.
Well, you know, it's crazy because they get you because you're like, well, Netflix is only $10 a month and Hulu is only $10 a month and Amazon is that price, right? And Spotify and like everything is that price. And when you think about it as one, you're like, that's not that bad. But then before you know it, you're literally at like $40 to $80 a month for all this different stuff. And then you're like, what the heck am I doing?
Well, like Netflix was like an okay value at like $7 a month when it was like back in the day, and it came with the DVD rentals and the video streaming service. And now it's like over 12 or something like that. It's like $11.99 every year. They increase it another $1, and that's why I got to the point where I was just like, forget it. It's not worth this dollar amount to me per month. It's not worth another $12 a year.
You'd be happier with the dollar.
Paying. Absolutely, every month.
Well, that's 2 burgers a year. So, all right.
One other item. So with the YouTube comment. There's a lot of stuff that ends up on YouTube when there's like a new release of things. So you can usually find like TV shows or like old episodes of things. I think like all of the episodes of The Office are out on YouTube somewhere. They do a really, really bad job of policing the stuff that's not supposed to be on YouTube for copyright infringement. They take down a lot of the YouTubers' like original content, flag that as copyright infringement, and that gets blown away, and there's a lot of problems with that. But the actual TV shows and stuff that float out on the network, and there's like whole channels just full of like all of these episodes of stuff, that's all out there. Like,
but we don't really condone watching it.
Yeah. Wink. Yeah. But I mean, like, you can find like I know there's like, if you want to watch every South Park episode, including the new releases, there's a whole website dedicated to that. You can just go pull the stuff up. And I know there's the same thing for like Rick and Morty, and that was all on YouTube at one point. And like, yeah, The Office is all out on YouTube, I think, right now, and a couple other shows that are just like floating out there, just full episodes of stuff. So if you want to see like the latest episode of something or like past episodes of something and just like are looking to browse on something, or just like looking to like look back at something you've seen before or catch up on something that people have talked about for years that you missed out on, like go just check and see if it's out there, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we again made a super long episode because we love to talk about saving money. So I won't do a recap because I think everybody kind of picked up what we were laying down already. But I will say that the next episode will actually be us breaking down our 2018 annual spending, which we got actually really good reviews last year when we did that for 2017. I think people liked kind of seeing what we spent and, you know, compared it to their own budget. I know we had one listener say that like they went through with a pen and paper and were like taking notes while we were talking about our budget. So that's fun for me to hear. So we'll go ahead and do that again next week. And, you know, Happy New Year to everybody listening. I hope you have, set your goals. I know we're in the second week when this is being released, but, set your goals and, save a lot of money in 2019. That's what we're trying to do over here.
Right. Push it, see what happens.
And you have no reason not to, because now we gave you 20 ways to save money. So. All right. Thanks. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Money in the Bank. Make sure to subscribe to us on the iTunes or Stitcher app so that you get weekly alerts every time we post a podcast. Or if you want, you can visit my website, moneyinthebankpodcast.com. And if you want to reach out with any questions or further comments, please email me at Angie@moneyinthebankpodcast.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
Money in the bank.